Okay, Albert, let's look over your essay. The Liberals had an advantage in the election since when the Conservatives were in power, they came across a large amount of criticism due to their mistakes they made is not necessary, so you can take that out. There were various of ways doesn't make sense, so just check that grammar for me, please, and change that. Why did the Liberals win? So that needs to say something like why the Liberals won a landslide victory, and this essay will assess the reasons. So good start apart from the grammar, so let's just fix those. The largest mistake was the Boer War. The Conservatives got elected at the time Boer War was taking place, so again check your grammar there for me please, in South African British colonial region. So in general, just double check some of your grammar around this paragraph for me please. Okay, where were we? The expectations at home were that would be a fast war and the Boers would get defeated easily. It proved them wrong. Most men were unfit to join the army and were lacking malnutrition, or they were malnutritioned, one or the other. So again, just fix that for me please, just here. The Tories also set up concentration camps that killed mostly civilians, women and children were getting killed. Again, just proofread that for me, please. So I like your point overall there. However, for that paragraph, you really need to read over it for grammar and also make it a little less descriptive and a little more analytical. So it would help if you wrote a really clear point, evidence, explain, link in relation to the actual question for me, please. The elected Conservative Party came into power with Salisbury in charge. He was a great leader that Conservatives seen as an icon. So that needs to be saw. Just check your tenses there. Yet he died whilst being in charge, which meant a new party leader had to be elected, creating disputes between the party. Therefore, this was seen as not a Conservative fault since Salisbury's death was inevitable. I would actually query that there, and could you actually possibly link that to Balfour's poor leadership and infighting, because they could have dealt with the death of Salisbury better. Okay, looking at your second page then. Another mistake made by the Conservatives was the neglect of poverty. Since the Conservatives were led by a capitalist point of view, they blamed the peasants for being poor. Probably wouldn't use the word peasants there. That's probably more of a key term that you could use in your Russia unit, but not this one. They thought this was because they were idle. That is a good key term, so well done. The reality was that making the salary was just not enough, or people with disabilities just couldn't go to work. Moreover, they made the workhouses a bad condition, so nobody visits them, and the people wanted a change, so they blamed the Conservatives, and that gave an idea for voting for the Liberals. Instead of what is that very descriptive paragraph there, I'd like you to change some of it up for just some statistics that either Charles Booth or Seabohm Rowntree found, please. Lib la pat was something, so never start a paragraph like that, please. I want you to look at the history connectives mat in our redo lesson. Lib la pat was something you can't blame the Conservatives for, as they weren't involved in this. This was a pact between Liberals and Labour that made Liberals pull out of 30 constituencies that were more dominated by Labour than them, which converted Liberal voters to Labour because these two parties opposed Conservatives and were left-wing. Therefore, this wasn't a mistake that led to the Liberals' landslide victory. Good. Yeah, that's fine. Just check your wording, but overall what you're saying is good in that paragraph. You're saying it wasn't a mistake and you've linked it clearly to the question. The Chinese Labour was the Chinese Labour. Again, just have a little look at your wrong highlighter, at your grammar for me, please. Just there. Chinese Labour was seen as the reason the Conservatives lost. They were treating Chinese people like slaves in the South African region, with crippled houses, low pay, crippled houses doesn't make sense, so just check that for me please. Low pay and bad working conditions, good, or you could say poor working conditions, but bad is fine. People thought Conservatives are or were going to bring the Chinese to England, which would have lowered pay and take jobs which the peasants, again, just revise that word, could have taken, and this would lead to a socialist outcry. So that's why they wanted Conservatives out of being in charge. Just add a link at the end of there. After you've added your link, that will relate nicely to the question, that paragraph. Okay, a big reason why. So look at the connectives map that I'm going to give you on Wednesday, please, and let's change the start of that paragraph. The Conservatives lost but can't be blamed. Can't, couldn't. So look at your tenses again, please, just there. Can't be blamed up there. Sorry, this picture's a little bit dark. For this was because of newly introduced new liberalism, which was concentrating on eliminating the poverty and wasn't focusing on the wealthy so much. The old liberalism was focused more on good. So I like your paragraph here. The thing that I would do to enhance it, this paragraph here, is I would use some facts from the Liberal Manifesto about what it was they were promising, because you can say that is both. You can say it's for the statement because it is a Conservative mistake because they were failing to address those issues, but you can also say that it challenges the statement in the question because it's out of the Conservatives' control, and then you're giving specific things that the Liberals were promising in their manifesto. An arguable reform that could have been a Conservative mistake was the Education Act. Yes, I wouldn't say it was arguable. I would say it, hands down, was definitely a Conservative mistake. You've explained that well, and you've linked it well at the end of that paragraph, so nothing to change there. In conclusion, the Conservatives made many mistakes after coming to power, but it's arguable if this made it a landslide victory. In Britain, the system of voting is first past the post. This is why it made it a landslide victory, but when counting it in percentages, it hasn't actually been a landslide victory. Stuff like, Albert, stuff. So we don't want stuff in our essays. So yeah, if you could take that out, that would be really good. Because of the voter system, not actually how many people voted for them. So all in all, what you're making here is a really good point. But what you want to do, you're basically saying that nothing else in your essay matters that you've written. What you actually want to say is that this is another reason why it was actually either you agree with the statement in the question or don't. So either you're saying here it wasn't the Conservatives' fault, and another reason that confirms this is the first past the post system, or you are arguing against the statement in the question. You can do both if you want to. However, I would argue that you've made an overwhelming argument for the statement in the question because you've given lots of Conservative failures. So just have a look at making a little bit of a stronger conclusion, please. Okay, finally, let's have a little look at the actual mark scheme. So straight away, I'll tell you, you are not a level 1. You have met some of the level 3. Descriptive in places. It is descriptive in places, unfortunately. You have shown some understanding of the demands of the question. Actually, I'd say you've met all of 3. So you're going to be answers show an understanding of the question, supply a range of largely accurate information. So communication skills we need to work on. Therefore, you're going to have 15. altogether, which is a solid C at 60%. Well done. Make those changes, please, in our redo lesson on Wednesday.